Okay, I am actually here somewhere unimaginable. Honestly, unimaginable. Because I knew this place was really nice. I did not expect it to be this amazing. And this is what I'm talking about. So we are currently here in Biri. It's an island north of northern Samar, which is still part of northern Samar. I I did not imagine this place to be this amazing. And so now I am actually also going to test out a new lens. And that's it right there. This is the new, well, not so new, but this is the Tamron 17-50 f4 DiIII VXD. Well, at first it didn't really sound new because there has been a Tamron 17-50 for decades now. But what you need to realize is this is a full frame lens. It's still the 17-50, but it's not APS-C. So they made it a lot better because now you can have an ultra wide angle that can go to 50 millimeters for full frame. Okay, so now I'm shooting with the A7R5, again with the Tamron 17-50 f4, and I really just want to see what this has to offer. Of course, the range alone is something intriguing, which is why I wanted to test it out in the first place. Right now, I'm using the Evo series from H&Y. It's a hell of a lot slimmer and it is magnetic. This is the adapter, and then you saw the ND64 filter. And the goal is to be able to do around 2 seconds of exposure. Usually I'd be shooting with a remote, so I don't trigger, but then this is touchscreen, so I'll just do touch shutter. Okay, so now I'm shooting at 2 seconds, f11, ISO 100 with an ND64 filter. Now the tricky part about wave painting is that you want to hit the shutter at the perfect time so you get the nice patterns of the waves either crashing or brushing onto the rocks. So a different part of the wave sequence will give you an entirely different looking water surface. But generally, your goal is to be able to shoot at around 1 to 4 seconds. You know what? I'm gonna move a little bit closer to the edge, even if there is a huge chance of me getting wet. So let me show you what it looks like when you're getting the impact, the crashing of the waves. This is what it looks like. And then now, this is what it looks like if we wait for the backwash. So you know what? I actually realized that Kuya is here to help me out. So someone is doing the video with me now. And what I love about Biri is that there are some amazing people that you can meet, and they will actually guide you to see these places. Because this actually took a bit of, not really a hike, but a long walk along the shoreline to get here. Because the immediate area after this doesn't really have a paved road. So you know what, I'm actually gonna move a little bit more to the left of where I was originally and make the most out of this situation before we lose the good lighting. Okay, I'm gonna shoot right here and also introduce you guys to the person who makes these amazing tours possible. This is Francis and Singh of Shutter Adventures Co. And if you're ever in the Philippines, or actually if wherever you are in the world, if you're looking for a photo tour, look for him because he goes everywhere. So I think this will be the final composition before the sunset. And I'm gonna set this down right here. This is actually perfectly leveled with the camera. Okay, you know what? I took a risk with this gear review, with this lens review. not not any physical risk or anything. Well, yes, I did do some pretty on the edge compositions while I was shooting there. But you see, that place where I shot the first part of this video, it's called the island of Biri. I've been wanting to go there for years, for maybe half a decade, ever since a friend told me about how beautiful the rock formations are over there. And you know what? It did not disappoint. It exceeded my expectations. The island of Biri is, I think, to me, a seascape paradise because there are just rock formations over there that I never thought existed. The weather was perfect. The the tides came in perfectly, and the waves had just enough action to make the compositions even more enticing. And that's precisely why it was a big risk for me because this was, of course, me finally being able to go to one of my dream local destinations. And yet, I brought with me a lens that I wasn't sure would perform as well as I would hope it would. Generally, I would avoid using any untested gear in such high stakes shoots, such as that. I would have been devastated if the lens did not perform as well as I had hoped. But well, let's save that for later. Don't mistake it for the Tamron 17-50 f2.8 that has existed for as long as I've been in photography during the DSLR days, basically. But as far as I know, there isn't any Tamron 17-50 2.8 for mirrorless cameras. And of course, those lenses were actually made for APS-C. And the biggest difference is this one is for full frame. And that makes it an entirely different lens than what you would expect from the older APS-C version. What I think is important that anyone who would get this lens should know is that there's something I'd say unusual about it, which is the front element. Simply because the glass on the front element is kind of inside an inner barrel of sorts. And that inner barrel zooms in and out. So if you're looking at it from the outside and you're zooming it in and out, it actually seems like it's internally focusing or internally zooming in and zooming out. But if you look at the front element, it's actually moving up and down. And this also means that the glass elements inside are moving in different directions when you're zooming in or out. But basically at 17 and 50, which is basically the wide and tight ends of the lens's range, the front element is actually pushed all the way to the front and closing off the gap. But if we are at about 28 millimeters, the front element, or actually that entire assembly, which is what I would call the inner barrel, is maybe about an inch pushed inwards. So optically, that doesn't really have so much implications as far as we're concerned. However, this might be a cause for concern when it comes to keeping the lens protected, especially if you're shooting in either moist situations or dusty situations, or just like what I did, I shot from the beach. And that might be a cause for concern. However, of course, this is a loner, so it's not my problem anymore. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't be worried about how I used this because most of the time that I was using this, I was also using filters. So the filters were automatically shielding the lens from any particulate matter or whatever that might get into that gap. Now, other things to talk about, there is, of course, the focus ring right here if you want to switch it to manual. It does not have a switch on its own, so you're going to have to switch the focusing on the camera body. We also have this shortcut button right here, which you can configure, and we have, of course, the thicker zoom ring over here. Now, just like any of the recent Tamron lenses, this one also has that USB-C port for when you want to use the interface for that, which is quite handy. But again, if you are someone like me who uses the rotating camera brackets, regardless of what brand, from SmallRig, from Falcam, from Nisi, from Sunway Photo, whoever else, this lens will not fit in that bracket because of the USB-C interface. So that's actually why I had to use my L bracket, which has been shelved for quite a while, just because I could not use the rotating bracket with this lens. Is that a deal breaker? I'm not too sure. Now, what did I expect? I expected okay performance. This is Tamron. I've been using Tamron for maybe over a decade now. It's been a while since I last reviewed a Tamron lens, except for the most recent one, which is the 35-150. What I did not expect is that it exceeded my expectations. Well, for one, what I did expect out of this one is that since it's a 17-50 and it's a relatively small lens, it's just around 7.3 centimeters when it comes to the diameter. What I expected is that there would be significant distortion. And at 17 millimeters, there is. There is quite a heavy barrel type distortion that you will see. However, I don't think this is made for any kind of photography that requires no distortion. And that's basically the architectural photographer in me saying that I will not be bringing this to my interior shoots. However, for landscape photography, I don't really mind getting distorted wide angle images with landscape photography when I'm photographing nature, because it's nature. You don't really need to get accurately the texture of the rocks in your foreground or of the waves, and it might actually benefit from a bit of distortion if you're shooting in nature, if you're using foreground elements to be your leading lines or whatever. So yes, it might be a deal breaker for some that it does have significant distortion. It is easily corrected when you shoot in RAW and you use it on Lightroom or Photoshop and you just click the lens's profile. And even if, for example, you're getting a bit of vignetting on the lens, it actually crops it out by warping. So when it comes to being able to correct the distortion, well, it's not 100% deal breaker because you can correct it in post. But yeah, there is that distortion. It will be up to you if you're gonna live with that distortion. And for me, if it's anything related to travel and landscape, then I think distortion is totally fine with that. Again, I'm just not gonna be using this for interiors and architecture. Now, when it comes to the autofocus, I had absolutely no problems with it. I wouldn't say it's the fastest. I would say this is quite at par with the focusing speed on my 20mm G lens. And I'm totally good with that because, again, I'm a landscape photographer. I don't really expect so much out of autofocus. But yeah, it did pretty well. Now, when it comes to the optics, I think that's where this exceeded my expectations. Now, when I did a sweep through the range, at F4 it was doing pretty okay. I saw the sharpness increase at around f5.6. And anything between f6.3 to f13, I was actually getting, at least in my opinion, the sharpest I was getting from this lens, and it was doing very well. Now, when I was shooting in the field, I put it on f11, and I just hoped for the best. And thankfully, it did very, very well. Overall, again, it exceeded my expectations. I love the fact that the range is different. It seemed similar to the older lenses, but remember, this is full frame. So we now have a 17mm ultra wide angle that can go all the way to 50mm. So it's kind of an extended ultra wide angle lens. And for people who don't like switching lenses so much, that will have so much value. In addition to how beautiful the island I visited was, it was just the perfect combination for the trip because as it turns out, I came home with more photos that I loved more than any other trip. And of course, that's actually because of how beautiful the place was. But thankfully, the lens performed optimally, and I am very happy with how sharp the photos were to a point wherein I've actually gotten some orders already for some prints. And yeah, there we go. This is again the Tamron 17-50 f4 DiIII VXD for Sony full frame mirrorless cameras as well as Nikon full frame mirrorless cameras. Can also be used with APS-C cameras, of course, with a crop factor. And as I've already said, this was a risk worth taking because it did bear a lot of fruit. Now, if you have any questions, of course, you can leave them down in the comment section. Of course, again, my name is Nico Valenzuela. I'm a landscape and architectural photographer, and I often geek out on lenses and cameras and other gear. So if you're into that, then click the subscribe button and hit that notification bell. In any case, thanks for watching.